Welcome back, scholars. For the second half of this week's art lesson, the first half we talked about surrealist art, dream art, but now we're going to move in a slightly different direction. This art is still going to be kind of strange, but this time we're going to be learning about a period of art called the Dada Movement. And Dada sounds like a really silly name for a style of art, and that's because this style of art is meant to be silly. The Dada movement started in the early 1900s, right around the time that World War I was going on. And the people of the world were feeling very stressed out, kind of like we might be feeling stressed out right now with our quarantine situation and our long distance learning. So, what the Dada artists did is they found a way to deal with that stress by doing humorous things, by making art that they thought was really, really funny, almost as funny as a prank or an April Fool's Day joke. So let's take a look at some of this artwork and see what made the Dada artists so funny. Now, this very first image that we're looking at is actually a sculpture. And this sculpture is by an artist whose name is Marais Oppenheim. And she called this an object. Now, when you look at this, what does it look like to you? If you said a teacup and a spoon and a little plate, a saucer, you're absolutely right. Now, when we think of a teacup, we think of drinking some tea or drinking a liquid, but is this something you would want to drink out of? It's completely covered in fur. And when Oppenheim made this sculpture, it was made as a joke. It took the idea of a teacup and made it something that you wouldn't want to drink out of. And one of the things that the artists in the Dada movement liked to do was play with something called function and form. Now, that word function talks about how something is used. A teacup typically is something you drink out of. But if you make it undrinkable, if you make it so that nobody would want to drink milk or tea or coffee out of this cup, then the only thing you can do is look at it. And something that is important because of how it looks, we would refer to that as the form. And a lot of things have form and function. Maybe you have a nice pair of sneakers. Yeah, they keep your feet dry and they keep your feet safe. Maybe they help you when you're running, but they can also look nice too. What the artists of the Dada movement did is they took something that was useful and made it completely unusable. So that the only thing it would be good as, the only thing it's useful for, is as a piece of art, something that could be looked at because of how it looks, because of that form. So let's take a look at another Dada art piece by an artist whose name is Man Ray. I'm going to move this teacup out of the way here. Now, Man Ray was an artist who created a sculpture he called The Gift. Now, this might look a little different than the one you have at home. The one you have at home might have a power cord on the end of it so that you can plug it in. But this is actually an old iron that people would use to iron their clothes with. They would heat it up and press that flat edge along their pants to make it nice and flat and wrinkle-free. But what Man Ray did is he made this iron completely unusable by gluing these spikes to it. And those spikes on the iron, if you tried to iron your pants or a shirt with this, it would tear it to shreds. So once again, Man Ray took something that was very useful, something that made your clothes look nice, and by putting those spikes on it, by gluing those nails to the bottom of it, he made it completely useless. So it no longer has a function, it only has a form. It's only something that we could look at. And the fact that he named it The Gift, I find is really, really funny because this would make a terrible, terrible gift. Now, the last one I want to show you is also kind of funny, and this is a real piece of art that this artist brought to a museum. Now, if we look at this, this is by an artist whose name is Marcel Duchamp. And you might recognize this from a bathroom because this is actually a urinal. It's a type of toilet. And what Duchamp did is he bought this toilet from a store. It was unused. It's not a dirty one. He flipped it upside down and he wrote a fake artist's name on it as a joke. And he submitted it to a museum, and the museum actually liked it. They thought it was a very clever sculpture because it was really, really funny. So even though he didn't build anything on this, and the only thing he really changed was writing a fake name and a date on it, um, but because he transformed this object, he made it something that you couldn't use in the bathroom anymore. He took away its function, and now it's only a piece of art. And the thing that makes it a piece of art is that joke. It's that really funny thing that Marcel Duchamp did to make this different than just a piece of plumbing that you'd find in a bathroom. Just like Man Ray made this iron completely unusable by covering it with nails, and just the way that Marais Oppenheim turned that saucer, that teacup, into something that would be disgusting to drink out of. So what we're going to do is we're going to think of something that maybe you use every day, like a spoon or a fork, maybe a pair of socks or an umbrella, maybe an object like a coffee mug or a plate, something that you might use around the house. How could you transform that object and turn it into something that can't be used the way that it should be used anymore? Now, one of the things that's tricky about this is I don't actually want you to ruin something in your house. So I'm going to show you two different ways that you can complete this artwork. One of them will be by drawing a picture, just using the Seesaw drawing tools. And the other way is going to be using a photograph that either you take with your camera or maybe that you find on the internet by doing a Google image search. And then we can change that picture to make an object that's usually useful and make it terribly, terribly unuseful. And that is how we create Dada art. All right, so once you're in Seesaw and you're ready to complete this assignment, go ahead and click Add Response. Choose your name. I'm using a fake scholar here. Now, there are two different ways we can do this. You can just draw an object that has a function and then do something to it to make it unusable, or you can upload a picture. Now, this could be a picture that you screenshotted, maybe a picture you downloaded from the internet, or even a picture that you took with your camera of an ordinary object that has a function, a use, that then you want to change and you want to make it unusable. I'm going to start with a drawing, but I'm going to show you how you can add another page and maybe add another idea or a different way to do this. So the first thing I need to do is I need to think of a useful object. And one thing that I think I mentioned before was an umbrella. I like the idea of an umbrella because I think umbrellas look kind of cool to begin with. So I'm going to choose my marker tool. I'm just doing a drawing here. And it doesn't have to be a super fancy umbrella. I'm just going to draw a nice hooked handle for my umbrella. And then I want to draw the shape of the umbrella. I'm going to use a dark blue for that. I'm going to draw the shape of my umbrella. Now, I don't want to see 360 umbrella drawings from each of my scholars doing the same thing. I want you to look around your house and see what things you have lying around that might be a useful object or an unuseful object. Maybe it's a pair of boots, or maybe a fork or a spoon. Maybe there's a bowl that you like to eat your breakfast out of, or maybe it's something outside like a bicycle or a car, or I don't know, maybe even something you see in your neighborhood like a swing set that you could draw and then make completely unusable so that the only thing it would be good for is a piece of art. So what I'm doing now, just to make my picture a little bit more interesting, is I'm just making a pattern on my umbrella. I think I'm going to have my umbrella be pink and green. So I'm doing the pink sections first. The pattern will be pink, green. And then once I have this colored in, I have to think about how I can change this umbrella. What would a Dada artist do to make a very useful tool into something completely unusable, something that could only be used as a piece of art? So when I do that, I just have to think, what is an umbrella for? And umbrellas are usually used by people who want to keep the rain off them. So if it was raining outside, I would open my umbrella and that would block the water from dripping on my head, from soaking my clothes. So if I wanted to make an umbrella unusable, what's something I could do to it that would make it pretty much useless, but maybe still kind of nice to look at? Now, if you're thinking put some holes in it, that's exactly what I was thinking. So now I'm going to move to my white paintbrush. I'm going to do a pattern of holes on my umbrella. And I'm going to make it so that this umbrella wouldn't actually block the water very well. It would be a terrible umbrella. It would do an awful job keeping me dry if I was caught in a rainstorm with this umbrella, but it's still a pretty cool looking object. Now, if I wanted this to look a little bit more realistic, maybe I can make the edges of those holes just a little bit more three-dimensional by using a darker purplish pink color in there. And now I have an object that used to be a really useful object, an umbrella that normally would keep the rain off my head, but now it's completely useless. It still looks very cool, and it could still be a piece of art, but I've taken away its function, and I've made it unusable as an umbrella. Now it can only be used as a piece of art that looks nice because it has form. And that's what the Dada artists were all about. So drawing an image is one way to do this. Or if you've already taken a picture or maybe taken a screenshot or downloaded a picture off the internet, here's another way you could do it. Now, anytime you're completing artwork, if you want to add more than one picture, all the way down here in the corner is a little button that says Add Page. And if you click on that, it'll actually add an empty piece of paper. Then all I have to do after this, over on the left, you can see this camera tool. If I click on that, it gives me two options. If I click on photo, it's going to want to take a picture from my phone or my laptop or my tablet, whatever I'm using. But I've already downloaded a picture off the internet. So I'm going to click upload, and then I'm going to choose that picture. And I chose a sneaker because sneakers are a really excellent form of art, believe it or not. Every sneaker in the world had to be designed by an artist first. So I picked this really nice sneaker from a pair of Jordans. Now, in real life, I would never ever ruin a real life shoe like this. Jordans are pretty expensive. They're really nice, super comfortable. So that's why I'm using a picture instead. Now, if I wanted to make this shoe unusable as a shoe, but still kind of beautiful, maybe I could think of a way that this would be unwearable. And the first thing I could think of is if I filled it up with dirt. Now, if I filled this shoe up with dirt, most likely nobody would want to wear it. And the dirt would kind of poke out of the top up here. I'm going to use a couple of different types of brown to make it look like a pile of dirt. But that's not really enough. It's not beautiful. It doesn't look nice. It doesn't have that form if I just fill a shoe with dirt. So what I could do is I could plant some seeds. And maybe if I gave that shoe enough time, maybe those seeds would start to grow. And maybe I'd start to see flowers appearing out of that shoe. Or maybe I wanted to grow something bigger. Maybe a tree started to come up out of that shoe. Or maybe a fruit or a vegetable if I wanted to use it to grow my own food or something like that. But you'll notice that now this shoe is completely unwearable. Nobody in their right mind would wear a pair of Jordans that are completely full of dirt with flowers popping out of them, but it does look nice, and it would be something that someone might put out for decoration. If I had an old pair of sneakers, maybe a pair of Jordans that I didn't wear anymore that were beaten up and maybe kind of wrecked from years of wearing them and playing a lot of basketball and running around, then absolutely I could turn that into this. But this is what the Dada artists were all about, taking something useful and then making it unuseful, but still nice to look at. So you can either draw a picture of something maybe you have lying around your house or maybe something you've used before, or you can take a picture or find a picture of something on the internet and then turn it into a piece of Dada art, art that has no real function. That means it can't do its job anymore, but has a whole bunch of form. That means it looks nice and can be used as a piece of art. I hope you guys have fun with this. Remember, don't fill your sneakers with dirt. Try to use a picture of something and not the real thing, and I can't wait to see what you create. Don't forget to click that green check in the corner so that I can see your work. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.